Hello, we ghosties. I'm Chance Lee.
And I'm Amanda McAvoy.
And this is That's So Gothic, a movie podcast about girls, guys, and haunted houses. Today, heads will roll as we discuss Tim Burton's 1999 spooky mystery action flick, Sleepy Hollow.
Constable Ichabod Crane, sent from New York to investigate murder in Sleepy Hollow.
How much have your superiors explained to you?
Only that the three were slain in open ground, their heads severed from their bodies.
Taken by the Headless Horseman, taken back to hell.
He rode a giant black steed. To look at him made your blood run cold. Even today, the Western Woods is a haunted place where brave men will not venture.
We have murders in New York without benefit of ghouls and goblins.
You're a long way from New York, Constable.
Is everyone in this village enthralled to superstition?
We have many things to talk about, even in this backward place.
Excuse my manner. I'm not used.
Female company?
Murder! The Horseman's killed again!
The assassin is a man of flesh and blood, and I will discover him.
Are you so certain of everything?
Perhaps there's a bit of a witch in you, Katrina.
Why do you say that?
Because you've bewitched me.
Released in 1999, Y2K, Sleepy Hollow was directed by Tim Burton. It stars Johnny Depp as Ichabod Crane, Christina Ricci as Katrina Von Tassel, great name, Christopher Walken as the Horseman when he has a head, Michael Gambon, who's Dumbledore number 2, as her father, Daddy Von Tassel. Jeffrey Jones as a corrupt reverend, and a slew of interchangeable white British men.
Yes, no idea.
Do not know their names.
No.
I'm like, is that guy from Vicar of Dibley? Is he? Are they from Harry Potter?
Right.
Like, there's
Probably.
just an assortment of British actors.
Yes.
And it also has a score by frequent Burton collaborator Danny Elfman. This is an adaptation of the 1820 Washington Irving story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. There was a Disney cartoon version.
Yep.
There was a TV series that was
yeah.
a modern series where I think Ichabod travels through time and ends up in modern day. Yeah. And I read there's going to be a new version.
Really?
That might be coming up as well by some screenwriter who is involved in a lot of upcoming new projects.
Okay.
So this remake is by someone named Lindsay Beer. She's working on a Pet Sematary prequel, which I never heard about. She also is working on a new Star Trek film.
Okay.
And a remake of Bambi for Disney.
Wow.
And Hello Kitty.
Oh.
She's all over the place.
She's busy.
And I guess she'll be doing Sleepy Hollow, some new one.
Booked and busy.
Booked and busy. So this movie has a 70% critical tomato and an 80% audience tomato.
Really?
Crowd pleaser.
Yep.
You agree it's a crowd pleaser?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think I told you, I've probably seen this movie like a dozen times, not because I particularly like it, but because I just find that whenever I'm in like a room with a group of people and it's fall time, you know, when I was a teenager having sleepovers, you know, now when people come over, it's always just like, I know I can suggest Sleepy Hollow and they'll probably go, yeah, okay, yeah, put that on. Like, It's a very autumnal movie. The 70% Rotten Tomatoes makes a lot of sense to me because I feel like it's just across the board fairly well received. You know, the 80% audience, yeah, I think it's a crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this movie came out in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I'm pretty sure I saw it in the theater on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh.
Because my mom and I used to go to a movie on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this was our Thanksgiving movie of the year. And I really enjoyed it when I saw it in the theater. I found it very funny.
Yes.
I did not find it scary.
Yep.
And I very briefly dated someone in high school who thought this movie was scary. And
Really?
I judged him pretty hard for that.
Well, that's the other thing is I think I can usually suggest it because I want to watch something scary, but most people do not. And so I would this would be almost like an intro for a lot of people, I think, into to scary. Actually, I would maybe even consider it as like an intro to scary for me because I watched it when I was really young.
Yeah.
I will say rewatching it, we can get more into this later, it was a lot more violent than I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, than I remember at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't think it's the most violent movie ever, but like...
I remember the gore. I really liked the gore.
Yeah.
Because Tim Burton wasn't usually gory. And
Right.
I liked that this was Tim Burton leaning into a gore.
Yeah.
It still had a cartoonish quality to it.
Yes.
But it's both cartoonish and grisly.
It is. It is quite grisly.
We'll talk about the numerous beheadings.
Yeah.
As we go through this. And also, like, I feel like that's a big thing, speaking of beheadings, in movie violence.
Yes.
I feel like a beheading is a big deal, or
Yes.
it was still in the 90s.
Yeah.
It seems to happen more frequently. I feel like there was a season of American Horror Story where everybody's head got cut off or stomped in.
Yep.
And it's like, did you guys just have a bunch of spare extra heads
Yeah.
lying around? And accounting's like, Ryan Murphy, we've got to use these, or it's going to be
we have a surplus.
Exactly. We need to use these so we can write them off.
Right.
But back in the 90s, it was a big deal. I remember always being a little shocked.
Really?
When someone lost a head.
Okay.
Like at the end of Speed, when Dennis Hopper's head gets knocked off. That was really startling to me.
Yeah. I mean, the only other beheading that comes to my mind is the recent Hereditary with the... But that is like, I feel like just a different league. Like
Yes.
that is...
Yes.
That is a different... That beheading has nothing compared to... The Sleepy Hollow. I guess I should say Sleepy Hollow has nothing compared to that one.
Yes.
Like,
Sleepy Hollow is more in quantity.
Yes.
And that's more in help.
Yeah.
Help me. Help get me out of this. In a good way. I love that movie.
Yeah. Right.
This one is like, this will desensitize you to beheadings until you get to Hereditary.
Until you get to oh God,
I'm
it's
traumatized
back.
again. So there's plenty of those.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Disney cartoon?
I think I did. I have like a vague memory of it, like a very scrawny Ichabod.
Yep.
Did the cartoon come before this movie?
The cartoon came before this movie.
Which is so funny because I feel like in the cartoon, maybe it's just my memories merging, the cartoon looks so much like Johnny Depp.
Oh, interesting.
Like, at least in my mind. Again, maybe this is my memory merging the two things together.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's this movie influencing my memory of the cartoon, or if the cartoon really was, like, you know, very similar to Johnny Depp, and then Tim Burton was like...
So, there's an interesting behind-the-scenes story about this. So the cartoon has big ears and a big nose.
Ah, okay.
And Johnny Depp wanted to wear a prosthetic big nose and big ears so he looked more like the cartoon character.
Okay.
And everybody was like,
Please
how about no?
Yeah.
And so they decided against that, which I think is a wise decision.
I do, yeah. Okay.
While we're on the subject of Johnny Depp, we'll say he may or may not have good judgment.
Yes.
As you may have heard...
Maybe.
Minor
news.
was in minor news.
Yeah.
He was involved in a trial.
Yes.
This year. We will not. This is all we're going to say about that.
Yes.
We are going to talk about this movie based on his acting abilities.
Yeah.
But I do want to tie this into Roger Ebert's review. Roger gave it 3.5 stars.
Wow.
Which startled me.
Yeah.
He says this is the best looking horror film since Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll revisit this when we do Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
He says that Johnny Depp is an actor able to disappear into characters never more readily than in one of Burton's films. By this point, he had already worked with Tim Burton at least twice with Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood. He's worked with Tim Burton like 8 to 10 movies.
Yeah.
A solid 10% of his filmography is Tim Burton movies.
Yeah.
And like half of Tim Burton's filmography has Johnny Depp in it. But I have a hard time now, just based on the breadth of knowledge
Yes.
we have about Johnny Depp and his personal life.
Yes.
Looking at him.
Yeah.
But I also had a hard time looking at him after Pirates of the Caribbean and after all
Yes.
these Tim Burton movies.
Right.
Where he really became, quote, Johnny Depp.
Yes.
He's always the same.
Yeah, I think this early in his career, people were probably like, wow, he's really delving into the character, like Robert Ebert said. But I think it's more that he was developing his character. Like, this is the character he's going to bring to movies. And I do think Johnny Depp suffers from that, like, you know, his fame is too much for him in a way. Like, because you can't watch a Johnny Depp movie and not say that's John. Unless you're watching, what's that awful Kevin Smith movie, Yoga Hosers?
I have never seen that.
Oh my God.
He's in that?
He's in it. He has like blonde wig, glasses, blonde mustache.
Oh my heavens.
Wears a hat. I think he has an accent in it.
I don't like
terrible.
this at all.
Terrible, terrible, terrible. Let's watch the 3 Kevin Smith horror movies for the next podcast.
Oh no.
I've
never. Seen Red State.
Yeah.
Which is bad.
Red State, the Walrus one.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Tusk.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's
I always
off
get
on
Tusk and Horns with Daniel Radcliffe confused.
I think they came out around the same time.
I think they must have.
Yeah. Anyways, that's a bit of a tangent. But yeah, I Johnny Depp has... I think he was one of my favorite actors when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say he's a bad actor, because I don't believe that, like, in my soul. No. But it's a very particular type of acting.
He has a particular type that he's very good at.
Yes.
And he relies on that, I think.
Yes.
And yeah, this is feel like is the like pre Willy Wonka, the pre Mad Hatter.
Right.
Like all the building blocks are there.
Yeah.
They just haven't let him fully unhinge himself yet, which Jack Sparrow let him do.
Yes. He hasn't gone over the precipice yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do think this is a very unique character. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about him a bit. And I loved it at the time.
Yes.
When I saw this. One thing Roger Ebert mentions, which I didn't catch, is that they, I guess he has a quote, and I'm assuming it's Ichabod Crane, Johnny Depp's character, talking about how this is the dawn of a new millennium.
Oh, yeah.
But it's 1799 to 1800, which is not a new millennium. Roger Ebert says he must have confused that with the transition from the 1000s to the 2000s.
Yes.
Which I found very funny.
Very funny.
Because I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
But this movie was very successful. Mm-hmm. It had a $70 million budget, and it made $206 million. So yeah, very, very successful. Mm-hmm. There are some interesting what-ifs that I want to ask you about. The Wikipedia page has lots of background about this movie. And one of them that I found amusing was Paramount required Tim Burton to consider 3 other actors.
Okay.
So I want you to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down on each of these, on if you think they'd be better or worse than Johnny Depp in this role.
Okay.
All right. Brad Pitt.
Ooh, thumbs down.
I agree.
Yep.
Liam Neeson.
I don't know very much about Liam Neeson in the 90s, but I'm gonna say thumbs down.
That's the craziest one to me. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Daniel Day-Lewis. Like,
oh my god, just going full character on it.
That's what I want to see.
Oh
like
my
him.
God. Because when he was in the Gangs of New York, is that what it's called?
Yes.
And he went full like Billy Butcher or whatever his name
is.
I could just see him going full New England, like constable, stomping around New York. Oh my goodness.
This is a completely different movie with Daniel Day-Lewis in it.
It really is. Was this before or after Gangs of New York?
This would have been before.
Okay.
So he would have done like Last of the Mohicans maybe around this time.
Okay.
The fact I don't understand what this means, Paramount required him to consider. Yeah. Does that mean if he chose Daniel Day-Lewis, like he'd be required to do it?
Right.
I feel like Daniel Day-Lewis would hate this project.
I don't know that he would like it.
Because he usually works with more auteur filmmakers, perhaps, than Tim. I don't know if auteur is the right word, but top shelf.
Yes. Yeah.
Tim Burton isn't quite like well liquor at this point, but he's getting there. So yeah, I found that really fascinating. What do you think the last good Tim Burton movie was?
Ooh. When did Big Fish come out?
2003. It did succeed this movie, so it was after Sleepy Hollow. Yes.
I love Big Fish.
I also am fond of that movie.
Yes.
I've never revisited it. I saw it in the theater.
Right.
I cried.
Yes.
I
mean, I have like a soft spot in my heart for is Tim Burton Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, or is it Willy Wonka in the Chocolate
He did Charlie in the Chocolate Factory with Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka.
I have like a soft spot in my heart for that one. I don't particularly think it's a good movie as I'm an adult, but it's one of those movies I grew up with, and you know, it's quotable, it's silly, it's stupid. So I
like how horny Missy Pyle is for Willy Wonka in that movie. I like anything Missy Pyle does, but her lusting after Willy Wonka really cracks me up.
Yeah. Maybe I will revisit that as an adult. But yeah, I mean, I've never been like a huge, even as like an emo kid in the 2000s, I was never like a huge diehard Tim Burton fan. My best friend was a big Tim Burton fan. She loved a lot of what he did. And I would watch the movies with her, but I was never like, this is my man, these are my movies. So, you know, how about you?
I was a big fan.
Oh, okay.
I loved Beetlejuice.
I always forget Beetlejuice is Tim Burton.
Yeah, so Beetlejuice was his second movie.
Yes.
He debuted with Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
That's right.
Which I saw as an adult and is wild.
Yeah.
Just the fact that Pee Wee Herman ever existed is baffling to me.
Yeah.
I watched this man every Saturday morning.
Really?
Like, that was my entertainment.
Yeah.
I had Pee Wee Herman merchandise.
Oh my God.
So that's how big it was. And then Batman Returns is still one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah. I've actually never watched the Tim Burton Batman movies. Yeah.
Batman Returns, Christmas is Coming, baby.
Yeah.
Best Christmas movie. Nightmare Before Christmas, which I always forget he didn't direct.
No. And then what's the other one? Frankenweenie.
Frankenweenie.
That was a big one.
Was actually a live-action short film first with Shelley Duvall as the mother. And it's very interesting. It's very short. It's like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I remember there being an ad for Frankenweenie in like a magazine when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? I want to see this. And I couldn't see it because where are you going to see a short film as a child? And I was curious about it for like decades.
Yeah.
And so I finally watched it maybe a couple years ago. It's worth visiting.
Okay.
I think where Tim Burton starts to slide is when he starts doing only adaptations. He hasn't really done an original work.
Yeah. What was that movie with Christoph Waltz and Big Eyes?
I liked that.
I don't think I ever actually watched that.
Is it good? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it's a good story. Amy Adams is great. Christoph Waltz is great.
Right.
And I think doing the biopic at least allows him to work with real people.
Yes.
Whereas all the stuff he chooses to adapt is already kind of shallow.
Really, yeah.
And like, I mean, what are you going to get out of Sleepy Hollow? You know, like, or Dark Shadows.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children.
Yeah, and I loved that book, and I hated the movie, so...
For some reason, I decided to see Tim Burton's Dumbo in theaters.
I forgot about that.
I don't know what was wrong with me this weekend, but I said, let's go see Dumbo.
Yeah.
And someone said, okay.
Right.
And two of us making terrible decisions went to go see Dumbo.
As a grown-up with your own money.
As a grown-up.
Yeah.
And I think we even saw it at like IMAX or like the Dolby Theater.
Why would they do
I went
that?
big on Dumbo.
Jeez.
And I had never even seen the Dumbo cartoon.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm never going to watch the cartoon, but I'll watch this because at least Ava Green is in it.
Yes.
She was great. But this movie has Michael Buffer, who is the guy who says, let's get ready to rumble! And they have him say, let's get ready for Dumbo! Twice. Twice! I was just like, what am I watching? What is this?
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be set in like the Great Depression or something. And like, you have this guy shouting, let's get ready for Dumbo. It was baffling to me.
Oh my God.
So yeah, Tim Burton's made a lot of bad choices.
Yes.
Upcoming for him is the new Wednesday Addams show.
Right.
Starring Jenna Ortega,
Who I do
my
love.
horror queen.
Yes.
So and Christina Ricci's kind of spiritual successor.
Yeah.
So there's I think Christina Ricci is supposed to cameo
That'd
in
be very
Wednesday
exciting.
as well.
Yeah.
Since she does have that Tim Burton connection.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's important to talk about just because I feel like that is, every time a Tim Burton movie comes out, I feel like people are always just like,
Yeah.
like there's an audible groan.
Right.
And yeah, it's kind of sad because I do love his early work.
Yeah.
And his original stuff. And,
Right.
But I hope he's happy.
Exactly.
I liked the Helena Bonham Carter era.
Yes, that was great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're apart now, right?
They are apart.
Yeah.
Yes.
Boo.
So we'll talk about his partner that he had during this movie later.
Ooh, okay.
So I have one more question before we get to our plot summary.
Yep.
And that's, have you read the original story?
I believe I have. I think I read it for like a intro to literature class in college.
Okay.
And then because you had mentioned, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak for you, but by the way, that you thought it was funny because it must be a New England thing.
Yes.
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah.
I forget that it's a regional thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about it in the South. We
Right.
read Faulkner and
Yeah.
Eudora Welty and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I had to read a plot synopsis of
Okay.
it. And it's interesting how different it is.
Yeah.
He's a school teacher.
Yes. Yeah. And does he meet the devil or something?
It seemed like in the story, it's
Yeah.
all a prank.
Oh, okay.
So
Yes.
there's not even a headless horseman.
Yes.
It's all a joke.
I think I'm getting it mixed up with a Nathaniel Hawthorne story.
There's a Nathaniel Hawthorne story where they're in the woods
Yeah.
and someone does meet the devil.
Okay, that's probably
Yeah.
it. All
Yeah.
of those New England folklore,
Yes.
men getting their comeuppance in some weird way
We'll
blends together.
We'll talk about American Gothic
Yes.
when we do our Gothic roundup because that is a different genre
Yes.
of Gothic.
Yeah.
One thing I found interesting, just because of the way Johnny Depp behaves in this movie and the way the romance he has with Christina Ricci's character just feels shoehorned in by a movie studio,
Yes.
I was like, is he supposed to be gay? And so I found a queer reading of an essay
Yes.
of the original work. So not
Okay.
this movie, but the Washington Irving story.
Right.
And it just talks about the queerness of Ichabod Crane.
Yeah.
How he looks different. He's not masculine.
Yep.
So there's a big contrast between him and Brom,
Right.
who's played by Casper Van Dien,
Yeah.
Mr. Starship Trooper himself, with a terrible haircut.
Yeah.
But so there's this contrast between the effemininity of Ichabod Crane
Right.
and the masculinity of Brom. And Ichabod Crane hangs out with the women and chats with them
Yes.
and forms these friendships with them while the men do not.
Right.
And he only wants to marry Katrina because she's an heiress and he wants her land.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a dick.
Right.
So I just found that really interesting. That they didn't. I kind of wish that was this movie too.
Yes,
Wish they had
yeah.
leaned more into
Right.
that.
Or at least gotten, rid of the romance. I get, every movie has to have something, but, yeah.
Yes. So let's, on that note, on that
Anyways.
exciting note, let's get into the plot summary for this movie. I'm going to try to abbreviate as much as possible. But we open with Martin Landau getting beheaded. And it's New York, 1799. And we meet our girl. So every Gothic movie has 4 categories.
Yep.
A girl, a guy, a haunt, and a house. Our girl, Ichabod Crane.
Yes.
Yes, baby.
Yeah.
Girl on this podcast, not a gendered term.
Nope.
Anybody can be a girl,
Yes.
regardless of gender. When we say girl,
Yep.
we mean the hero or heroine of the story who is getting wrapped up into something beyond their control.
Yes.
And usually gets involved in some sort of supernatural thing and has to figure it out for themselves. So he's our girl.
Yes.
And we'll revisit that later. So his thing is he believes in science,
Yes.
but nobody else does.
Right.
And Christopher Lee, of all people,
Yeah.
shows up as a judge.
Yeah.
So Christopher Lee was known for those Hammer horror movies that we talked about back on Woman in Black.
Yes.
And this movie was before he was in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And before he was Count Dooku in Star Wars. I never remember his actual, I think it was Dooku.
Yeah.
But I always called him Count Dooku
Doo-doo.
because I did not like those movies. And he plays Willy Wonka's dad in the Willy Wonka
Oh
one.
my god.
The dentist. 'Cause
Yes.
they have to give Willy Wonka a tragic
I
backstory.
forgot about that whole aspect of the movie.
Yes.
Of course.
Tim Burton loves a tragic backstory.
He does.
And he shoehorns in multiple ones
Yes.
into this movie.
Everyone is sad.
Everyone's got a horrible backstory.
Everyone.
So he gets sent to investigate beheadings in Sleepy Hollow. So he packs up and off we go. We're like 17 minutes into the movie and we finally see the credits.
Yes.
So he shows up in Sleepy Hollow, which has a bunch of sheep. There's a graveyard that seems to have more graves than there are houses. So we get a feeling this little New England, or it's not New England, it's upstate New York, has been around for a long time.
Right.
The town is... I think they do a good job setting the scene with the town.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
To talk about the town.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, I hate to just give this to the town because it's kind of the whole movie. Very gray, very, somber looking. They describe it as being primarily Dutch, which very pragmatic people. I love the Dutch. I love your cocoa.
They all have like Van or Von names.
Yes.
They're all Van someone, Von this, Von that, Von Trap.
Yes.
Yes.
At some point later in the movie, not to skip ahead, but Katrina says something about how all the families are related either by blood or marriage.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very, again, not New England, but upstate New York, very colonial.
Colonial's a good word.
And it's a nice contrast to, I do, even though it takes a while to get there, I like that it starts with him in the city, because it is a really nice contrast to see.
That's true.
At this point in time, too, that there are these big bustling cities. I think if he were to just be dropped off in Sleepy Hollow, you'd kind of feel a little isolated, a little like... it's nice
like
to...
M. Night Shyamalan, The Village.
Yes. Yeah, it's nice to know that there's science and things happening outside of Sleepy Hollow. There are cities, there are bustling towns. It's just Sleepy Hollow is kind of isolated. It's kind of chill.
It's good contextualization, because
Yes.
I'm not good with history, and I forget.
No. Oh.
Did New York exist in 1820? I have
Who
no
knows?
idea.
Who knows?
Yes.
I can't believe they're even in America at this point.
Right? Wait, when did this happen?
Whoa!
Yeah. So, isn't this England?
Yeah, right. Enough English actors.
They're all English actors. I feel like by this point, shouldn't they be
growing
out of that British accent?
Right, yeah.
They forced poor Christina Ricci to do a British accent.
Yes. Oh, it's so bad. She's just whispering.
She tries real hard. There's a Resident Evil game that takes place in Spain, but in this small Spanish town, and it reminds me a lot of Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, interesting.
Especially when he shows up and like Woman in Black, everyone just shuts the windows
Yes.
on him. No one wants in there. They're very secluded. They're building a weird watchtower with a bunch of spikes.
Right.
So I got these Resident Evil vibes. So he shows up at the inn, the social center, and we have a bosomy blonde.
Of course.
Who turns out to be Christina Ricci as Katrina von Tassel. She's blindfolded and playing some game where she's going to kiss some guy. Yeah. Which is basically her whole role.
Yes.
She has no vision, and she's there to smooch a guy.
Smooching.
And she goes, "Who's got a kiss for the wickety witch?"
Yes.
Not like that, but that's the only British accent.
That's pretty good.
Mine's a little more, like, chavvy, I think, than most.
Yeah.
But
Oi.
Yes.
Oi.
Have you heard my Harry Potter impersonation?
No.
Oi, it's me, Harry Potter.
Have you ever heard my Cho Chang?
No. Oh, no.
I'm sorry, Harry. Somebody already asked me to go.
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
She's
got a little bit of like English and Scottish in there. Yeah.
We should reenact Harry Potter sometime.
We should, yeah.
People mistake me for Daniel Radcliffe all the time. So she seems to be in some sort of relationship with Brom. Not Brahms, the boy.
No. That would be a fun movie.
That would be a fun movie. But Casper Van Dien, who's fresh from Starship Troopers.
Is that really his name?
At this point, yeah.
I thought you were joshing me.
No.
Oh my god.
They've given him a terrible haircut.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
He has like bangs and like, it's just like this straight framing of his face. It's long. It's like shoulder length hair.
Yeah. Is it like is that like a Dutch thing? A Dutch boy thing?
It must be, because a couple of men
have
that haircut.
Yeah.
I think he pulls it back at some point in a ponytail, and it's not that bad.
Yes.
But when it's down, it's...
Yeah.
So Dumbledore is there. He's Daddy Von Tassel.
Yep.
He's throwing this party. They introduce him to all the other white men who are in charge of this.
Yep.
And kind of go over the mystery. Oh my god. Mystery! I forgot to mention the screenwriter of this movie.
Yes!
I forgot to mention the screenwriter of this movie.
I'm so excited to know.
So I'm going to give you a hint.
Okay.
All right, to guess.
Okay.
Or at least maybe, you might not know the person's name.
Right.
But you'll know what movie they did.
Okay.
All right? What's in the box?
Oh my God, 7?
Yes! Andrew
What?
Kevin Walker, who wrote 7, wrote Sleepy Hollow.
What?
And I think that's why half of this movie is a police procedural.
Yes, yeah.
And
Actually,
that's why they made Ichabod Crane from a teacher into a constable who's doing detective work.
that is so bizarre.
It's like they're like, oh wait, this guy chopped off Gwyneth's head in a script. Let's get him in for this other movie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this guy knows a thing or two about heads.
He knows beheadings.
Yeah,
but yeah, I gasped when I
so
when
weird.
I saw that, but it made things make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of scenes of this movie.
Yes.
Of detective work.
Right.
And I find them the weakest parts of the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I find the action the weakest part, but
well, I should say there's a lot of weak parts of this movie, and yes, I will agree with you. The action is weaker, but it doesn't happen as frequently.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, shout out to my best friend Jessica. So she's the one who I was talking about who liked Tim Burton. I think she really liked this movie. I'm pretty sure we've watched it together before. She is now a crime scene, she's basically in training to be a crime scene investigator. She's a crime scene analyst right now. And my theory is that this movie inspired her. So if it did one thing, it got Jessica out there on the roads.
I
on the
love
streets.
that.
Yeah.
I love that for her.
And I can tell you she's a lot more confident than Johnny Depp in this movie.
I hope so.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a man of
too.
science, but they make him look like a buffoon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is the viewpoint of this movie?
Right.
There's a lot of confusion I have around this movie. So we get into the mystery part. There's a lot of him trying to figure things out and trying to do autopsies, and people don't want him to.
Yeah. Oh, I love can I just cut in real quick?
Of course.
I love this was a line I noticed this time watching it. I don't think I ever noticed it before. It's the very beginning when the guy shows up in the city being coming out of the river, like he drowned or whatever.
Yes.
And so Johnny Depp, Ichabod Crane, I'm just going to keep calling him Johnny Depp. I can't help it.
You can't not see him.
I can't. But Ichabod, says, to whoever it is, probably like the head police officer, oh, I want to cut him open to see if he has water in his lungs. And the police officer says, what are we, savages?
Yes.
And then they drag out the guy with the bloodied face.
Yes.
And he's like, what did he do? And he's like, oh, he just, shoplifted or something. Yes. I do love that part.
Yes.
Like, that was a good little... And that's what I think Tim Burton does well, is those little peppery moments of like, oh, that's kind of cute, kind of funny, kind of tongue-in-cheek.
Yes. I do like the jokey parts of this movie.
Right.
And that's where I don't like the procedural parts.
Yeah.
Because they take this mystery very seriously.
They do.
And I could not care less.
Right.
Which of these old white men is responsible for these crimes.
Seriously.
The same goes for the real world.
Yes.
So we learn about this legend
Yep.
of the Hessian horseman.
Yes.
So he was sent by German princes to keep Americans under English control. He has a horse named Daredevil. Which is not a word I would have thought would have been in use at that time. Because I mostly just think of Evel Knievel. But so it's Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken shows up. He has his teeth filed into sharp points.
Yep.
He has crazy hair sticking up, and he's chopping off heads. Yeah. So he meets these two weird blonde girls in the woods. One of them snaps a twig, alerts them to his location, and he's murdered.
Yes.
So he's decapitated by American soldiers. And they believe that he's trying to get his head back. Yeah. And that's why he's out chopping people's heads off. His sword came from the fires of hell. Yep. Because it cauterizes wounds. Yep.
Hellfire.
And so we cut to this watchtower that's being built. And there's actually a really nice spooky scene where there's the torches at the tree line, and this mist comes out and blows them out, and then the horseman appears. Yes. Next thing we know, this guy's being chased down and killed. Of course. So we have another body. There's an autopsy scene, and then this person who was killed, his young son, young Mazbeth, wants to join up with the constable. So he kind of becomes his second, his like
Robin.
sidekick.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Since Tim Burton didn't get to do the Batman with Robin.
Exactly.
So he's going back to that. Ichabod gets chased, but it turns out that it's just Casper Van Dien, Brom, doing a prank. Yep. Throws the flaming pumpkin at him and knocks him off.
Like that.
And I guess that's what happens in the original story.
Yeah.
And then they kind of leave it empty, open-ended. Was there ever even a headless horseman? So... After he passes out a lot in this movie.
Yes.
After he passes out,
fainting in this movie.
There's a lot of fainting.
Yeah.
He has this. very sexualized dream about his mother.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That was something I noticed on this rewatches.
Yes, tell me about that.
She is stacked. It's because you're talking about the one where she's in the woods, right? Is that at this point?
Yeah, is she spinning around?
Yeah, she's spinning around.
All the dresses in this movie, we have to say, are very low cut and cleavagey.
Yes. Yep. All the women are busty.
But considering these flashbacks are involving him as a child,
yes,
looking at his mother and her heaving bosom.
Right. Well, and also if he's a child, he's looking up. He doesn't know.
That's true. Oh, she's always shot from above.
Yeah, she's always above,
cleavage.
like right down into the boobage. Mm-hmm. So, like, how is a child seeing that?
Yes.
But yeah, so she's in the woods. She's like spinning. She's having a grand old time. She starts. She's like one of those what were those toys with the fairies where you pull the string and they go.
Oh my God, what were those? I used to see them on TV all the time.
Fairy High or something.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's a flashback.
Yeah, she was literally that. Someone pulled her string and she went up into the air.
Except she barely had a top on.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think KB Toys would carry her.
No.
And then so is it? I get a lot of his dreams mixed up. And then
you can kind of talk about all of them now if you want. And then
is it in that one where I think it's implied it's her father is like the priest or something?
I think it's his father.
His father. Oh,
yes,
okay.
I think that because he says later that his dad killed his mother.
Okay, I must have just missed that. But yeah, so it's he takes her. And I don't think it's quite in the first dream, but, like, I think the first dream cuts off at him dragging her away, maybe. I
think so.
Yeah.
We get, like, 4 of these over the course of the movie.
And then, yeah, you do get sort of the, I don't know if you want me to go further in the dream.
Keep going.
So, basically, what happens is she gets put in the, what is it called? Iron Maiden?
Iron Maiden,
yes. With all the spikes. And I will say that is a visceral scene.
Yes.
Because I think her eyes are, like, still open. She's still semi, like, alive.
There's a few scenes in this movie where you only see someone's eyes peeking through slots.
Yes.
Or slits.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I didn't notice how much of a theme that is.
Yeah.
And then I think too, again, I apologize because I feel like a lot of it gets mixed up in my head.
No, not at all.
I'm assuming it's a, what's the word? A hallucination for him. The Iron Maiden pops open and she comes forward and then a huge gust of blood comes. Yes. And then I think that's at the point where he like holds his hands up and he touches the Iron Maiden.
Yes.
And that's why he has
because we see a couple times. Yeah. He has like dots on his hands.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, what his dreams boil down to is, you know, his mom got skewered, for lack of a better word, and it was traumatizing. And he talks about how he doesn't believe in like religion or God or anymore.
Yes, because his father was a priest.
Yes.
His mother was accused of being a witch.
That's right. That was an important part.
And that's a tension that is in this film.
Right.
Witchcraft and Puritanism.
Yes, of course.
And yeah, it's tough because these visions, we're never sure. We're never clarified as to what actually happens. Right. So you're never sure what's going on. Yeah. Was she floating?
Yes.
You know, did this happen?
Right.
The movie is very vague with that.
And it definitely, the visions, the dreams are very, like, stylized. Like, they definitely weren't living in this house with this huge, long hallway with a long red carpet, you know, leading into the room with the Iron Maiden. Like, that probably wasn't happening. So there are probably exaggerated things. And
that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has those a lot. Yes. We'll just kind of, and I'm glad you went over it. Now we don't have to keep coming back to that.
Thank God.
That makes it a lot more cohesive. So he has his first of these mini visions.
Yep.
So his bosomy mother is played by Lisa Marie. Not Lisa Marie Presley.
Oh my God. You... I was like, wait.
That's what most people come to.
Yes.
But so her name is just Lisa Marie.
Okay.
She was engaged to Tim Burton for many years.
Oh.
And she's kind of like the Sherry Moon Zombie to his Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Where he puts her in almost all of his movies.
Right.
She's in Mars Attacks.
Okay.
She's in the Mark Wahlberg Planet of the Apes.
Oh my God.
She plays Vampirella in Ed Wood.
Oh.
The one who's Boobarella in The Simpsons.
Yes.
Look at my boobs. So
yes.
So you can see. So Tim Burton likes these busty ladies.
Yes.
And she, I guess, no shade intended to Lisa Marie, but maybe doesn't have the chops of as Helena Bonham Carter.
Yes.
Who he would later be in a relationship with and put in all of his movies. And
she's incredible.
And it's fantastic.
Oh God, she's so good.
So I feel like, you know, his sexualization of her unfortunately comes across as this weird Oedipal thing.
Yeah.
So there's an article, I was trying to find like contemporary criticism at the time about this movie, and could not find anything. But I found an article in the Sunday Times, which I think this is a British paper, that is an interview with Tim Burton's girlfriend, Lisa Marie. And it begins, luckily for Tim Burton, his girlfriend, Lisa Marie, has a real thing for Gothic.
Oh.
We should have her on the podcast.
Yeah.
Here, this I don't know if this is a typo in transcription or what. The star of Sleep Hollow reveals why she loves being wrapped up in strange costumes and uncomfortable corsets. So she talks a lot about goth, which was a big deal in the 90s and early 2000s. And they were engaged for 7 years at this time.
Wow.
And were at least together for maybe another 3-4 years. I don't think they ever got married.
Yeah.
And so they never got married. It says Lisa Marie, who doesn't use a surname. She's quite mysterious.
Yeah.
And so she worked as a fashion model.
Oh.
I don't know how they met. But she talks about how she loves bondage and being wrapped up. So that's kind of her shtick.
Yep.
And she loves being in, she's used to being in these small costumes. But that's kind of it. It's a very fluffy piece about this. She looked up to Marilyn Monroe.
Yep.
But I just find her an interesting figure because as soon as her and Tim Burton were no longer together, she disappeared from cultural consciousness.
Yeah.
Poof. If she
Marie.
ever was in it to begin with.
Right.
But I mean, I knew who she was for some reason. Like I just knew he put her in all of his movies.
Yeah. See, I didn't know that at all.
I knew that.
I didn't know he was. I thought he was with. I always want to call her Helena Bonham Carter. I thought he was with her for actually much longer than apparently he was. So I thought he was with her all through the 90s too.
No, I think they met shortly before, or maybe doing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh.
So that was 2005.
Wow.
So I don't know if he was with Lisa Marie with Big Fish. I can't remember if she was in it. But I knew long enough to be like, oh, let me try to spot her in his movies.
Okay.
So I think she's a sexy leopard in Planet of the Apes or something. Or a spotted, I don't know, cheetah person.
Right.
That movie's bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see where we left off. So he wakes up and look at that. Bosomy Katrina is there.
Yep.
Heaving bosoms over her. And she has a good quote. She says, "My father believes tales of romance cause the brain sickness that killed my mother."
Yes.
So again, we get this like fact versus fiction, romance versus reality. And this is she never gets any character building. Yeah. She only gets exposition.
Yeah.
But this sets up the fact that her mother is dead.
Yes.
The Lady Von Tassel is her stepmother.
Right.
Who was her mother's sick nurse.
Yes.
So she'll come back later. She's played by Miranda Richardson.
Which it took me until this viewing to realize it was not Michelle Pfeiffer. I thought it was Michelle Pfeiffer this entire time.
I keep shading people, but God, I wish it was Michelle Pfeiffer.
That'd be so nice. I really thought it was her, especially because I loved, did you ever see Stardust?
Once.
I feel like they're very similar characters, Michelle Pfeiffer's character in that, and
I wonder if he wanted her for this.
Right.
Because she was Catwoman.
She was Catwoman.
In Batman Returns.
Yep.
And he did work with her again in Dark Shadows.
Oh, okay.
She's in that.
Yeah.
Which I only seen half awake at a drive-in. But yeah, I wonder if he wanted. She would be perfect.
She would be a really, really good.
Did you see Maleficent 2?
No, is she in that?
Yes.
Oh.
Her and Angelina Jolie have a very tense dinner scene.
Yes.
Worth watching.
Just all cheekbones and tension.
Worth watching. It's so good. So yeah, I wish it was Michelle Pfeiffer. I don't know Miranda Richardson is a name I know.
Right.
And I don't know why I know it.
I cannot
She does not look familiar to me.
Right.
She looks kind of like Joan Allen.
Okay.
But I'm looking at her filmography and I don't.
Yeah.
She was not in my wheelhouse, I guess, at this time. So we'll meet her a bit later. So we jump. Oh, she gives him a spell book. She gives him her mother's spell book. Says, keep it next to your heart. It will protect you.
Right.
You can see where that's going. And then he goes to interview the magistrate, who's one of these interchangeable white men.
Right.
Who I think was in like League of Gentlemen or one of these British
Probably.
comedy troupes, Little Britain.
Yeah.
One of those. The horseman appears, cuts off his head. This is my favorite beheading in the movie.
Yes.
Because his head spins around like 3 times.
Yep.
And then like rolls off, hits Johnny Depp right in the groin.
Right in the crotch.
And then the horseman gallops up, spears the head, and rides off.
Kebabs it.
The only thing I remember about this movie 20 years later are all the beheading scenes.
Yes.
I probably was asleep during
Yes.
all the rest of this, but those are so cool.
Yeah,
at the
one
time.
eye open for the beheadings.
So cool.
Yeah.
So, Ichabod passes out, has more sexual dreams about his mother. He then wakes up. He decides that he's going to find the grave of the Headless Horseman.
Right.
So young Mazbeth, who's probably like, I don't know, 10, 12. I don't know how old this boy is supposed to be.
I would have guessed like 13 or 14. I'm really bad with kids' ages, though.
Especially, I mean, I know this isn't like a documentary, but like, people looked a lot older than they actually were back then.
Yeah.
I love watching my old game shows from the 70s and 80s. And someone who like looks like I remember my dad looking when I was a kid shows up. And they're like, what do you do for a living? They're like, I'm a junior in college. And,
Right.
You know, I love surfing and cruising for babes.
Yeah, right.
It's like, you look 40.
How do you not have 4 kids and a mortgage?
You look 40.
Yeah.
Like, I am so glad to be born in a time where we're all attractive. Like,
no ugly people.
Yes. And all our listeners are attractive as well.
Of course. Beautiful.
So this is another part of the movie I remembered and enjoyed because he loves to use this kid as his human shield.
He does that a lot. He does it with Katrina a couple times. Yeah, I love it.
He's so cowardly,
Yes.
but in this way where they never say it.
No.
And he's always just like, so he puts the boy in front of him and kind of pushes him into this witch's hut first, which is really funny. And there's a witch.
Yeah.
There's a witch inside. She does a spell. She transforms into a spooky witch.
Yeah.
These weird CGI eyeballs pop out of her.
It's very actually it reminds me of Beetlejuice with the long face and the eyeballs.
That's true.
Yeah.
Except it's CG instead
so
of
it's not
cool
good.
practical
Yeah.
effects. And the eyeballs look like something they would add into a 3D movie. You would put on the glasses
like,
and see that pop out.
Eyeballs are coming.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a very strange choice, and I wonder if they did it to make the gore seem more comical.
Right.
She tells them where to find the grave. They go to this tree of the dead. Katrina has followed them in her gorgeous cloak.
Yep. And she's like so pale, and her horse is white.
Yes.
It's just like just white, just glowing. Yeah.
She looks great.
Yeah.
Her costumes are great in this movie.
like almost white blonde hair.
Yes.
Very dainty.
She looks very good on camera. Yeah. So they find this tree. And it's like bleeding. And he hacks away at it. And the tree is bleeding while he's hacking away at it. And inside the roots, he finds all the heads that have been missing.
They all kind of flip up at the same time.
Yes, kind of like a head jump scare.
Yeah.
He then decides that the skeleton must be nearby, so he digs it up and sees that it's in there with no head.
Right.
So clearly someone has the head and is like controlling the horseman.
Yeah.
And then the horse and the horseman spring forth from, frankly, this vagina tree.
It's a vagina.
Right. It's not just me, right?
It's a vagina.
Like you see the horse's head crowning.
Yes.
And it springs forth from the crotch of this tree.
Yeah. It doesn't help too that this is the same tree that was like bleeding. So it's like moist.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Everyone who hates that word, but it is.
It is. It's like menstrual blood
Yes.
or like a placenta blood. Like just the general effects of giving birth.
Yes.
Or not. But yes.
Yeah. It's vagina.
It's a very strange choice.
It is.
That means nothing to this movie.
No, I don't think it relates to anything.
When I was like 16 and watching this, I was like, oh, wow, that looks like a vagina.
Whoa.
This is amazing, man. Tim Burton, R-rated.
Jeez.
Because I do think this is his first R-rated movie.
I didn't know it was R-rated. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So the horsemen's come out of this vagina tree. Ichabod chases him.
Yep.
We have a scary cabin scene with a character who I cannot remember who this man is.
I have no idea.
We've seen him.
I was so confused as to why he was like targeted, and then you know, I'm sure you'll get into it, but it's actually like his wife, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyways,
Yes.
but yeah, no, I have no idea who these people are.
No idea who this is. There's a man, his wife, and their child.
Which is so surprising too, because they're like the first like younger people.
Yes.
Also, like, and younger relatively. I mean, they're probably in their 30s or however old people are back then who were having babies.
Right.
But
15.
Yeah, right. Who knows? But yeah, like I was like, how do I not know these people? No idea.
Yes.
Did not
They had been
mention.
on camera. Do not know who they are. There's too many characters in this movie.
Yes.
But there's a very tense, like, this is the only, one of the biggest scenes in the movie that's shot like a horror film.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but I feel like there was a teaser for this movie that was just that scene.
Ooh.
They just showed that scene.
Yeah, I would not remember that.
Which, you know, kind of sets up different expectations.
Yeah.
But it is very tense.
Yeah.
It has another scene because there's a point where the horseman chops the mom's head off. The kid is hidden under the floorboards, and her head lands with just her eyes looking at him.
And the slaps. Yep.
So that's pretty good.
Yes.
Even the kid gets killed. We love when the kid gets killed.
Yay.
So then, like, Casper Van Dien shows up, Brom, and tries to attack the horseman. And Ichabod tries to tell him he's not after you, stop doing this.
Right.
But his machismo,
I gotta go.
He gotta do it.
Yep.
He gets cut in half.
Oh yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I'm going back into my like teenage. Like, yes! Like that's what I wanted to see on screen.
Bisected.
Oh, it was amazing.
Pretty good.
So traumatic night. Ichabod passes out again.
Of course.
I think this is the third or fourth time.
Yeah.
Drink when Ichabod passes out.
You would die.
So he wakes up. Him and Katrina kind of have like a romantic moment now. Which is that. So Christina Ricci was either 18 or 19 filming this movie.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp was 17 years older than she was.
And, like, you know, my description of her too, like they did not try to make her look older.
No.
If anything, she looks younger than she is.
Yes.
She looked so incredibly young in this movie.
Yes. It's very creepy.
Yeah.
I do not like it. I do not like their relationship. Even if she was older, the character, there's no point for it.
No.
But it's made extra creepy by how old they are.
Yes.
Thankfully, they don't really, they kind of lean into it, but they don't do too much with it, which is nice. So he wakes up, he makes this kind of like Always Sunny in Philadelphia conspiracy pile, you know, of like all the names.
Yes.
And the scene goes on forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, I do not care.
That was right about where I like tapped out on this latest rewatch, as I was like, I'm not paying attention.
Nope. Morgan Freeman talking about the 7 deadly sins. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Johnny Depp putting out a bunch of almost identical looking Dutch names on a table. I do not care.
Seriously.
I do not care.
As someone who likes to do genealogy in my spare time, how this was not more interesting to me is that would be like I'm the target audience for that.
That's true.
And I love historical documents. I love, you know, people coming together. Absolutely no interest. I was like, this is dumb.
That I don't think the scriptwriter knows genie. This is where they needed to get a consultant.
Yes, that's true. They should have had a local history librarian or something.
He's just doing this criminology part to it. So he makes this connection with all the town elders.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Katrina is being very suspicious looking. The movie's going to start trying to make it seem like she's the one doing this.
Yes.
Do you ever buy that?
No. And actually, you know what I noticed on I was so proud of myself for this like observation. I'm sure other people have made it. I'm sure it's probably common knowledge. But there's a part in the movie when Johnny Depp's character and her are, you know, off doing their own thing, and he gives her that bird in the cage.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and it's a red bird. So it's a red herring. I was wondering,
like, why do they make such a big deal about this cardinal?
Yes, and I think the fact that she has this bird with her, the little trick. It's a red herring.
Love that. Yes.
I mean, it's not actually a herring; it's a cardinal, but you know.
They didn't have herring. They're not near a river.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
true.
True.
That makes sense.
Are red herrings even like real?
I think so.
I mean, herrings are obviously.
Herrings are.
I don't know if they come in red.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
When I was a child, there's a Scooby. Do you know there's a Scooby-Doo where they're all kids?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Scooby. I still know the theme song to it. But there was a character named Red Herring.
Okay.
And so I knew that before I knew Red Herring was a term.
Oh, that's
so that
funny.
joke went right over my head as a child.
That's hilarious.
A pup named Scooby-Doo. That was it. Yes.
Oh, so good.
Yes. So yeah, they're gonna try to plant this on Katrina.
Yeah.
And even in the theater, I can't imagine me buying this,
No.
even though I was pretty gullible back then.
Yeah.
They fight though, because she's trying to defend Daddy Von Tassel.
Right.
She says, "I curse the day you came to Sleepy Hollow,"
Yes.
and she rides away.
Yeah.
So there's a point where he then he shrieks because there's a spider on the ground.
Of course.
And he finds like a symbol that's
Yep.
drawn under his bed.
Yeah, the evil eye.
And then he heads out, and I don't know why he heads out, but he finds the Reverend and the stepmother
Yep.
rutting away
Oh,
in
yeah.
a ditch.
Yep.
And this would be so good as Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh my god.
But she like cuts her hand
Yep.
and she like smears her blood on his back, which I guess is just a kink thing, because later they show him just licking her wound.
Yeah.
Like it's not
He's
actually
totally fine with it.
witchcraft.
Yeah.
I think it's just their thing.
Yeah.
Which is
Well,
odd
because
choice.
when I was watching it this time, I was like, does she have to do that to mark the person? I'm sorry, I'm spoiling.
Spoiler
them.
alert, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry, listeners.
Yeah.
You know, if you were watching along.
If you're watching along.
But spoiler alert, she's the controlling
yeah.
the Headless Horseman. And so I thought maybe that was how she would have to mark them, like for the horseman to then go after them. But I realized it's never implied she does it again.
No.
She, I think, later sends the horsemen on, Ichabod and Christina.
And Katrina. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she doesn't bleed on them.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe she just has...
I don't know. I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think this is just their like sex thing.
Yeah, unless she has like some sort of weird like blood web shooters Spider-Man style. It's just
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, but no. So yes, weird sex thing. They're
It's
having weird sex.
so strange.
Yep.
So she tells Crane not to reveal what he saw.
Yeah.
Dumbledore comes in. He says that one of the other white men hung himself,
Yeah.
and that Crane should leave because they're all gonna like form a posse and run him out of town anyway.
Yeah.
And then he tells the stepmother to go pick some arrowroot flowers for her wound. So she's picking her flowers, and here comes the horseman behind her with his sword unsheathed.
Yep.
And then we cut to the church scene,
Yeah.
which I think is maybe the iconic scene of this movie.
I was going to say, it is probably my favorite scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really good. And in particular, do you want me to go over the
Go
church
for
scene?
it.
So basically what happens is the whole town gathers at the church. It's, very quaint, small church, wooden, whatever. And
Still
then-
exists in a lot of our area,
Yes.
New England,
Oh,
and
yeah.
upstate New York. Yeah.
Yep, we could find them. And it has like a little white picket fence around it. I don't remember. Is the graveyard isn't included inside the fence, I don't think, right?
I don't think so, but it's nearby.
Yeah, so there's a little white picket fence around it. All the people are gathering. And then Mr. Daddy Tassel comes running up and, the horseman is, coming and he killed my wife, the stepmother. Oh my God. And so everyone freaks out, goes into the church. And what they find out is that the Headless Horseman can't cross into hollowed ground or whatever the term is. So
He throws his axe.
yeah, it's actually pretty cool. He throws the axe and then the axe disintegrates. So I think what I love about this scene is that they're relatively safe. Like everyone could just chill out. Like
That's true.
He can't get in if everyone just chills out. But
They're all freaking the fuck out.
inside of the church just devolves into chaos. And I think that's what I love about this movie is because 3 people end up dying in this scene, and only one of them is from the Headless Horseman because one of the old white guys tries to tell Daddy Von Tassel something to do with the secret, which what it is I couldn't even tell you because I stopped following at this point.
Who cares?
Who cares? And then I love it because one of the other old white guys takes a post, I don't know.
It might even be a giant cross.
Yeah,
'cause it's the Reverend.
You're right. I think it is actually the giant cross because he turns around, grabs it, and just bonks him on the head, and you see the little circle of blood where it bonked him. So good. And then because he does that, Daddy Tassel shoots the guy who hits them, but it was kind of a mistake. He's kind of oh, I can't believe I did that. And then probably my favorite scene, not of any movie, that is a huge get, but just one of my favorite scenes. So Daddy Tassel runs up to the rafters. He's screaming. He's like, everyone leave me alone, freaking out. People are trying to go up the stairs after him, and he's waving a gun around. Again, if everyone just chilled
Not
out.
necessary.
Just totally unnecessary. Oh, also at this point, Katrina, like, kneels down on the ground, doesn't say anything.
Oh, right.
It's just, like, kneeling on the ground doing some hood rat shut. I don't know. Anyway, so... so he's up on the rafters screaming, and what, Christopher Walken has done which I guess is not technically him, because he doesn't have a head, but whatever. He rips off one of the white picket fence posts, ties a rope to it or something. I don't know what he ties to it, why he has it. I don't know. Throws it through the stained glass window, hits Daddy, which, by the way, it's a pretty opaque stained glass window. I don't know how he saw him.
How he knew he was there.
Unless maybe I'm remembering that incorrectly.
I think you're right.
I think it's pretty opaque. Yeah. Maybe he just hears him screaming for no reason. So he throws the post, it impales him right in the middle of the chest, yanks him backwards through the window, and he goes flying out the window, hits the fence, gets his head chopped off by the Headless Horseman, rides off with the head. Yeah. It's great.
It's such a good scene. Christina Ricci gets to scream.
Yes.
She gets a close up with a scream.
Good scream. Yep. And then it pans over sort of the aftermath, and Christina Ricci screams and faints, of course.
Oh my God, that's right. She does
faint. Because then you have this great scene of her laying like on her back up in the rafter after seeing her father just brutally murdered. And it pans over her, and on the floor where she was is a big symbol, witchy looking symbol.
Like a pentacle.
Yes. It's just chaotic and stupid, and I love it.
Yes.
I love it so much.
It's very memorable.
Yeah.
It's very memorable.
It's a good time.
And so, the symbol, though, then we get into the, Katrina did it. And then Crane tries to cover it up. He doesn't want people to know Katrina did it.
Yeah.
And then he decides to leave. And then for some reason he decides to look in the spell book.
Right.
While he's in the carriage leaving Sleepy Hollow and realizes what she did was a protection spell.
Right.
So then he has to go back.
Of course.
By the time he gets back there, the stepmother has already revealed that she faked her own death and that she's been in charge of everything.
Yes.
So this is all a plot. Frankly, I don't even want to get into her whole backstory.
It's so stupid.
Watch the movie if you care.
Yeah.
So she is summoning the Horsemen to come get Katrina. She calls him her Dark Avenger. She does reveal that she was one of the creepy blonde girls.
Yes.
In the intro, which was great because I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
I didn't remember that scene at all.
Yeah.
And then then the movie devolves into just a 15-minute action sequence.
Yeah, and like I said, that's probably my least favorite part, is I really don't. It's a lot of chasing, a lot of horseback riding, literally Fast and the Furious style carriage ride.
Yes. But terribly filmed.
Really bad.
It's not well done. There is a great, so they get trapped in a windmill. And then,
I do like that.
They ride the windmill sails down.
Yeah.
And in someone who knows how to shoot action scenes, that could have been really cool.
Right.
It sounds like a good idea on paper, but it was not well executed.
Yeah. A windmill is very slow. So it's just kind of like...
That's true. We need it to break and then to swing down. We need to add some drama to this. It does explode.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why.
Right.
But it does explode, which is very exciting. The stepmother shoots Ichabod in the heart.
Oh, yes.
But of course he survives because he had the spell book there in his heart. It's very predictable.
Yeah.
They did this exact same thing in Problem Child with John Ritter in 1990. So it's just I cannot believe this is a plot point in this movie. So he manages to, Crane gets the skull from the stepmother, plops it on the Headless Horseman's head, neck bone, spinal column, whatever that's called. The head bone is connected. And then we do get a pretty good CG shot of the blood vessels and the muscles growing back.
Good. Yeah.
They can't resist the urge to put bugging out CG eyes on him, though.
They love them.
They really ruin that with those damn eyes.
My eyes.
So he becomes Christopher Walken. He takes the woman and kisses her and bites her tongue off.
Yeah.
And
a lot of blood when he pulls away.
On one hand, it's okay, great, because it's kind of cool. But on the other hand, it's the punishment for this woman is sexual assault. Is that again where we want to go with this? And then it's implied he's going to take her into the vagina tree.
Yes.
And I guess just rape her for all eternity.
Right.
That's where we're going with this?
Yes.
So, blessedly, she gets crushed to death in the tree's vagina.
Yay.
It does have a very, vagina dentata feel to it.
A win for feminists everywhere.
Yes, because her hand is just left hanging.
Yeah.
Like a breech birth baby from this tree vagina. Oh my god, this movie's turned into such a mess.
Yep.
Ichabod Crane faints.
Of course.
And then we cut to him and Katrina. I guess he's decided to take Katrina back to New York City. She kisses him on the cheek.
Yes.
I don't think they ever do a mouth-to-mouth kiss.
I don't think so.
Which is, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
She does have this very cute Beetlejuice dress on. It's black and white striped.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this supposed to be Beetlejuice? But now they're, I guess, in a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
At least when she was in Buffalo 66, with Vincent Gallo, it was at gunpoint.
Right.
She has no reason.
No.
She basically owns Sleepy Hollow now.
I know.
I understand her dad was brutally murdered in front of her.
Right.
But,
whatever.
I also don't understand why the stepmother didn't just kill her, because, everyone else is dead.
Yeah.
Who's gonna care?
And it's not like she didn't have a problem with it, because she kills, a servant girl.
Yes.
She kills someone else, too. I think one of the men.
She kills one of the men, and she kills her own sister.
That's right!
It turns out her twin sister was the witch. With the bug eyes.
Right.
And so they show her kill her, too.
Yes.
So, yeah, Anyway.
I don't know, why she didn't just stab her and get it done with.
Get it over with.
Yeah.
So, Michelle Pfeiffer
would have
done it herself.
Yeah.
So, that's probably Michelle was probably reading the script and then saw that and was like, nope.
Pass.
I'm busy.
Pass.
I don't know what Michelle Pfeiffer was doing in 1999.
No.
I think What Lies Beneath.
Oh, okay.
But, yes, upgrade, frankly.
Yeah.
And that movie's not very good either. But we could talk about that one someday.
Okay.
And then Johnny Depp, as Ichabod Crane, says to her, "The Bronx is up and the battery's down," which is a lyric from Frank Sinatra's New York, New York.
Oh my god.
And this is the line they're ending this movie on. And he says, "And home is this way." But I was just like, really? I could not believe that. And then we go to the credits.
Yeah.
Did we miss anything?
This ungodly horror, but I don't care.
Of a film. Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a short break. We'll come back with our Gothic recap and decide, is it Gothic? And maybe what type of Gothic it is. All right, we ghosties, we are back with our Gothic recap. So every Gothic movie we discuss has 4 qualities: a girl, a guy, a haunt, and a house. Our girl, Ichabod Crane, in the house. So obviously not a girl, but as we said earlier, these are not necessarily gendered terms.
No.
But traditionally, the Gothic heroine is female.
Right.
And Ichabod does fit well into that role.
Yes. Yeah. Brought into a situation, beyond his control. Even more so because he is firmly grounded in science and reality at the beginning.
Yes.
And then is presented with, headless horsemen and pale, busty women. It's very confusing for him.
Yes. And that is the thing, too, I think, with the Gothic heroines.
Yeah.
They're usually book smart.
Yes.
They're intelligent. They're more advanced intellectually than the people around them. So he fits great into our girl category.
Yes.
I don't think we have a guy.
Not really, no. Especially when you think of the guy as usually someone who, kind of lures, or at least is, a catalyst for the girl's actions. Because obviously there's Katrina in this, but she doesn't do a whole lot.
No.
She's really never the reason why the story progresses. She really is.
Never the reason anything happens.
Exactly.
She's such a terrible character.
So sorry, Christina Ricci. You deserve better.
Christina Ricci, as a whole, I feel like deserves a lot better.
Yeah.
Just, I don't think people really knew it. There weren't a lot of roles written for Christina Ricci, I think, and that's the thing. I'm glad she was able to work.
Yes.
But unfortunately, most of her work was not in roles that were well suited to her talents.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
But I think this is a great place to bring up early American Gothic.
Yeah.
Which is different than the type of Gothic we normally talk about, which I feel like is more rooted in British or English Gothic. So American Gothic writers this is according to Wikipedia, were particularly concerned with frontier wilderness anxiety and the lasting effects of a puritanical society. And Wikipedia says that The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving is perhaps the most famous example of an American colonial era Gothic fiction. And so this definitely falls into that.
Yeah.
Where you have the woods being the symbolic of the unknown. And the science versus religion.
Right.
The puritanical, they're all very Puritan.
Yes.
But they're also all fucking the stepmom.
Right.
She was sleeping with all these British guys.
Yeah, yep.
So, they're all hypocrites.
Yes.
The Reverend's the worst one.
Right.
Jeffrey Jones, who was in real life convicted of child pornography.
Yikes.
Yet another canceled individual we have to discuss that's in Sleepy Hollow. But we will move on from that.
Yep.
So another thing they have on Wikipedia, they mention what we've talked about, rationality versus the irrational, Puritanism. They also talk about this phrase that I had never heard before called abhuman. A-B human. This is different from inhuman, which typically connotes an ethical or moral separation from others. So abhuman, they talk about vampires, werewolves. So not quite human, and in danger of becoming not itself. I found that an interesting term, even though I don't think it applies to this story.
Interesting.
Because the Headless Horseman is shown as always being barbaric.
Yeah, he was always kind of a dick.
Yes.
Yeah. That's an interesting, I'm sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. That's a really interesting term though. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, I never heard it. Unfortunately, this is just the introduction to the Wikipedia article American Gothic Fiction, so there's no footnote where I can further research abhumans.
We'll look into that.
It does have its own page though, that explains.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do Interview with the Vampire eventually, and I feel like that would be a really good term for that.
We can definitely revisit then. The Wikipedia article mentions some examples of American Gothic fiction, and Interview with the Vampire is one of them.
There it is.
So will be revisiting that shortly. Stay tuned, we ghosties. So, and I think maybe Young Goodman Brown is the Nathaniel Hawthorne story with the Devil in the Woods.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So our haunt is obviously the Headless Horseman.
Yep.
He fits into this nice category where he's kind of a ghost, but kind of corporeal.
Right.
He is dead.
Yep.
But yeah, he was always bad.
Yeah. Always kind of a dickhead.
Yes. Sometimes the ghosts are nice.
Right.
Or aren't what they seem.
Yeah.
But this one is what he seems from the get-go.
Yeah. Right. It's not like, because even though he's kind of, sold up the river by the, girl snapping the twig and stuff, it's not like he was some innocent guy who was framed by. He was killing people, Now, I don't know if you know anything. I don't. I didn't mean to start that off by saying, sounding like I knew anything about it. I don't know if you know anything about it.
Please school me.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. So, because I always was really confused, and I guess maybe this is my own folly, and maybe I should have looked into it more, but why they had to make it so convoluted that it wasn't just a British soldier. It was a German guy hired by the British.
Knows. I didn't even think about researching that because that was just one of many details. And I'm like, why is that in this?
They didn't even have Christopher Walken talk.
He doesn't even speak.
So it's not like Christopher Walken, can't pull off a British accent, which he probably could, but then, and he can only pull off a German accent. That's not a reason, which he probably couldn't. It's so bizarre, and that always confused me. And then, because even before I started watching it this time, I thought maybe it had something to do with the French and Indian War, but I don't think that's later until the 1800s. That's
you're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah, I could be wrong. But it's so bizarre to me. Why is he German? Why is he this Hessian? Is it just because it sounds creepier? Do they think that we won't take a brutal British guy,
right?
As
and was this even a thing? Was this something? I'm assuming this is a thing.
I had to. I mean, I'm sure it happened.
They couldn't have invented this whole thing just for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, Hessian, I think, is a term, a German soldier.
Okay.
But was it? I don't...
Right. Did the British hire German soldiers to just kill Americans?
Yeah.
Why weren't the British just doing it themselves?
Right. Well, especially, like, in New York. Like,
right.
I don't know. Like, it's a very Dutch... Who knows?
I do not understand.
I don't get it.
I do not understand.
It just seems like a weird... Maybe there's some, like, really great historical context that we're missing. Maybe this is some, like, great Easter egg thing. If it is, please let us know. But it just seems like an unnecessary detail.
I feel like it's just going to be another disappointment.
Yeah. Is it just a reason to put Christopher Walken in, like, a really cool peacoat that isn't, like, you know, red?
Yeah.
You know, they all had to wear red.
They had the costume, and then they were like, oh shit, how do we
this is
fit
very
this
German.
in?
Yeah, this is not British enough.
It's very German. There's some schnitzel. Yeah. There's some lederhosen. Sorry, I don't know my German.
I mean, even the horse's name is Daredevil. That's not very German.
Oh, that's true.
Das Daredevil.
I want to know how to say daredevil in German.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Google Translate.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how to say this. Let's see. I don't think I've ever translated to German on Google Translate.
I can't imagine that I ever had.
Daredevil.
Wagen.
That's it?
Wagen.
Oh, sorry. It must have started translating before I finished typing. Draufgänger. Der Draufgänger.
Draufgänger. That's actually kind of scary.
But it also says Daredevil or Go-Getter.
Oh. No.
Go get him.
Oh,
go get him. That's what they said to the guy as he rides off to behead people. Go get him.
Go get him.
Go get him, Tiger.
Go get him, chap.
Pat on the butt. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's a great observation of an unnecessary detail.
Yes.
One thing I want to go back to that I said I wasn't, but now I am, talking about Puritanism and just the hypocrisy. Unfortunately, I do have to go back to stepmother's motivation and her backstory.
Okay.
So her mother was accused of being a witch.
Yeah.
So that fits into the puritanical aspect.
Right.
So not only was her mother killed, but then they evicted her from the house.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't pay their rent.
Right.
So I am always pro someone killing their landlord.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Hopefully the management office of my building never listens to this. I won't put up any of our stickers in my building. But you guys are fine. If you are listening, I do love my apartment management staff. They're safe.
It's very nice in
They're
here.
not the ones taking the money.
Yeah, please fix the way your doors work because it is a pain in the ass.
The doors are broken and they still have not returned my light bulbs.
Yeah.
But we will not get into that on this podcast. But yeah, so I am pro. It's like, oh, this is great. Yeah. Yes. Claim that land.
Yes.
Like, again, if this was Michelle Pfeiffer, I'd be like,
oh
bitch
my God.
is going to own this town.
Yes.
So, yeah, I wanted her to lean into it a little harder.
Yeah, because you really don't. It gets just so convoluted with the amount of people she has to kill.
Yes.
For her to, like, get any sort of, financial gain or whatever. Yes. So many people she has to kill that there's just no time to, like, get into her backstory or get into her as a character.
Everything's an exposition dump.
Yes.
She just dumps this all on you.
Yes.
In literally the last 15 minutes of the movie.
It's definitely that trope of, why aren't you just killing this person? Why are you explaining your entire evil plan?
Yes.
Why does Katrina need to know? No one else is there.
Seven guy should have made it more, where we kind of see Kevin Spacey throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Should have made it more where we knew this ahead of time.
Right.
We get to know her.
Yes.
Anyway, this could have been so much better of a movie.
Right.
So our house, we don't have one particular house, but we've got an entire village of Sleepy Hollow. So sadly, I shouldn't say sadly, but it's a set.
It's a set.
It's a set.
And you can tell.
It's a set.
Yeah.
They did want to shoot on location, and they scouted some towns throughout upstate New York.
Okay.
But they decided it just didn't fit with the kind of Tim Burton style. He's a very stylistic vision. So they were also going to do Sturbridge, Massachusetts.
Oh,
have you been to Sturbridge Village?
Yeah, that's the one where it's all like colonial, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if I've been there. I think once I thought I was in Sturbridge Village, but we were at like a museum next door.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize we were in the wrong place for quite a while. So, whoops. So yeah, they actually filmed this in the UK, but on a set.
Okay.
It was a studio that they say had recently been vacated by Star Wars Episode 1, which I also did not know was filmed in England.
Interesting.
And I also didn't know that Tim Burton directed Batman entirely in Britain.
Really?
What?
Why?
I had no idea.
What?
So lots of fun facts there.
Interesting.
If you we ghosties, if you like this movie, the Wikipedia page for Sleepy Hollow is a wealth of information. I also have to go back to our girl.
Oh, yeah.
Our girl Ichabod Crane. Mm-hmm. There's a video clip of an interview of Johnny Depp talking about his character and his terrible idea to give himself a prosthetic nose.
Yeah.
But he says, quote, about Ichabod Crane, quote, "I thought of him as a prepubescent young girl."
Oh. Wow.
Which is both a little condescending.
Yes.
But also an interesting view into his character.
I don't know how to feel about that. Huh. I did faint a lot as a child, so...
Did you? I've never
Not
fainted.
a lot, but, I mean, more than I think
I've
I should
never
have.
fainted.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm realizing that I should faint more as an adult. It seems to really get him out of a lot of things.
Right?
Why? Let's bring fainting back.
We should bring fainting back.
Right.
The furniture's a lot more comfortable now.
Seriously.
You could at least faint into something soft.
Yeah. But, okay, a prepubescent girl. Interesting. Well, that makes his romance with Christina Ricci even more troubling.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's more like a kindred friendship.
Well, it is interesting that they don't ever share like a romantic, passionate kiss.
They really don't. And they really don't even... I mean, they talk about sharing hearts or whatever, but like...
Maybe they're just really good friends.
Yeah.
They'll be roomies.
Right, yeah. You know, we're doing the opposite of what people say when they see, like, lesbians.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, no, they're friends.
They're just friends.
I've done way more romantic stuff with my best friends than they've ever done. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So
they're very chaste.
I think they're just buddies. Yeah, they're roommates.
I like that.
And they were roommates.
I like that.
Yeah.
They just move in together.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, her dad was killed.
Yeah.
So.
And she reads romance books, and he reads science books.
Yeah.
Actually, this is very similar to me and my best friend Jessica, which I think is now making me Katrina, which is troubling.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really relate to her, but in the relationship I am.
Yeah.
Okay. I accept my fate.
Accept your fate.
I accept my fate.
You should get a replica of her horse gown.
Oh, yes.
That would be a really nice Halloween costume.
And I'll practice more witchcraft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
And then last but not least, we have our bonus Gothic categories. Mm-hmm. These are typically things like incest, romantic rival, pananos. You kind of have the Casper Van Dien character as a romantic rival, but he literally has 2 scenes.
Seriously.
And in one of them, he gets chopped in half.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he has a speaking part.
No.
When he looks jealous of Ichabod kissing Katrina. I think he just stands there and glares.
I do think he says something because she like introduces herself. Ichabod says, you know, where is the senior tassel? And then, you know, beefy boy, I don't know what his name is. Brom, beefy Dutch boy, says something along the lines of, and what is your name, sir?
Okay.
Yeah, and then, you know, Gandalf comes, not Gandalf.
Gandalf, the other wizard.
The other wizard comes out and says, you know, we're not going to raise our voices. So,
okay.
I think he has that.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's aggressive. You know, he's kind of a dickhead.
Yes.
He's a beefy boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he doesn't really, and Katrina really never seems all that smitten with him. She doesn't, I don't think ever says why she's with him.
Right.
Maybe I missed it, but, you know, there's never like I'm betrothed to him.
That's true.
From childhood. You know, that's how it's usually kind of set up. And
yeah, like it's just expected.
It's just expected.
The 2 richest people in town or something like that.
I don't think we ever get that. Again, I could be wrong.
That's true.
But, yeah. So
she's not really that upset.
She's not. Well, yeah, it's like immediately after he gets friggin' chopped in half.
Yeah.
Carved up. He's like, how about scrawny scientist boy over here?
Yeah.
So even though that's not what she does, because she shows like zero emotion and zero.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess it's kind of there.
Kind of there,
but barely.
So what do you think? Is this Gothic?
I mean, I think it's American Gothic.
American Gothic. Yeah, this definitely doesn't fit. If we were doing our Gothic standards,
right?
I would say Gothish.
Yes.
But it definitely fits into that American Gothic.
Yeah, and I would say it is. It's like, this is sort of the Crimson Peak of American Gothic.
Oh, okay. I
feel
like that.
Yeah, this is very much like, even though we love Crimson Peak.
Yes.
And that was a perfect example of British Gothic. Maybe it's just showing us we don't really like American Gothic, apparently.
I know. It's just, it's not as good a quality.
It's not as good. It's
Yeah.
not as, you know, the only word that comes to mind is fabulous. Like, it's not
Yeah.
as razzle-dazzle.
That's very true.
It's not as razzle-dazzle. I need a little bit more sequins or something
Yes.
in my Gothic.
There are so many British people in this movie. It should be better.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's American Gothic for sure.
It's American Gothic.
It's Goth-ish in our normal
Maybe if
terms.
they gotten some crazy Americans, Michelle Pfeiffer, some
my
others.
God.
Get some crazy American guys in
Yes.
there. Maybe it would have been more fun.
It would have been.
I feel like they're putting them in the stodgy British role when we want them in the unhinged British role.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wish that the chaos of the church scene was pretty much the whole movie.
Yes.
A lot more
It needs
fighting.
that energy.
Yeah. It would have been much better.
Yes. Well, great. Anything else you want to add about Sleepy Hollow?
I think I'm good.
Excellent. So thank you, Amanda, and thank you, We
you.
Ghosties, for listening to us break down Sleepy Hollow. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. As you know, we're on Apple Podcasts, so rate and review us there. You can drop us an email at sogothicpod@gmail.com with comments and suggestions for future films. You can also follow us on Instagram at... I say this and I forget our handle.
I think it's So Gothic
So
Pod.
Gothic Pod. If that doesn't work, just try Gothic Pod. You'll find us. And we're going to drop some hints about what we'll discuss next. Maybe another American Gothic. Until next time, stay ghosty. Boo-bye.
Bye.